Hi everyone, welcome back to Kendra's Vintage Kitchen. Today I will be doing another I Love Lucy recipe, and it will be out of the same cookbook I used last time. And this is what the recipe looks like if you do have the book. So the recipe I will be doing today is called the Happy Little Loaf of Bread. And it is from season 1. And instead of talking about the episode why I'll be baking, I decided I will start off with talking about the episode that the recipe is from. So this episode is called Pioneer Women, and it is episode 25 of season 1. And in this episode, the beginning of the episode at least, Lucy and Ethel are washing dishes, and Lucy makes a comment about how many dishes she's probably washed while she's been married to Ricky. And so Lucy and Ethel end up storming into the living room where Fred and Ricky are sitting down, and Lucy then demands that Ricky get her a dishwasher, and then Ricky makes a comment about how women nowadays, are lazy and spoiled pretty much, and how his grandmother made everything by hand, and they didn't have all the modern conveniences of what they do now. So they end up making a bet between the men and the women, and so the bet is to see how long they could live without the modern conveniences. So the next day comes around, and Lucy is getting Ricky's breakfast ready, and Ethel comes in, and Ethel asks, kind of what that thing is in the corner, and Lucy pulls off the sheet, and there's a bathtub she bought for Ricky to take a bath in, and then she quickly covers it back up before Ricky comes in to the kitchen and has his breakfast. So Ricky, comes in and sits down and starts talking to Lucy and trying to figure out how she's going to make breakfast, or what she's going to make for him for breakfast. And then comes Fred. Fred comes in, and he asks Ethel for some more butter. And then Lucy chimes in and says, yeah, Ethel, would you mind picking up a loaf of bread for me? Because I'm also out. And Fred says, hold on. My grandmother churned her own butter, and Ricky's all like, yeah, my grandmother baked her own bread. So the girls end up, starting to make their own butter and bread. So a little bit later on, you see Lucy in the kitchen, kneading the dough, and Ethel comes in, and here she is with a butter churner, and she's got her hands stuck onto it, and asks Lucy for help, for her to pry her hands off. So Lucy helps her, and Ethel then asks Lucy, hey, how's your bread going? And Lucy says, well, I had to go to three or four stores just to get enough yeast for the bread. And Ethel then looks down at Lucy's cookbook, and, Lucy had something on her cookbook that Ethel ended up moving, and Ethel looked down at that cookbook, and she said, Lucy, you didn't need that much yeast. And Lucy's like, oh, whatever, what's the worst that can happen? So Lucy ends up finishing what she's doing with the bread, and she puts it in a bowl, and then she sets it down for the bread to rise, and then she helps Ethel make some actual butter. So the girls go off and, start making the butter again. And then they come back into the kitchen, and here's this big, huge mound of bread that's overfilling in the bowl that Lucy put the bread in to rise. And Lucy asks Ethel for help to get the bread off the floor, and so once she gets the bread off the floor, she ends up kneading the bread again, and then putting the bread in a bigger bowl this time, and then letting it rise one more time. And so she sets the bread down in the same corner where she had the bread to begin with, and then both of the girls go back and continue to make the butter. Then they come back after, however long, and Ethel's got her little thing of butter that she ended up making. She said, I can't believe, I spent this much money on making, this little tiny thing of butter. And then the girls look over in the corner where the bread is at, and they can't believe how big it's gotten. And, Lucy ends up kneading the bread again, and after, she asks Ethel for help to get the bread off the floor again. And so she then puts the bread onto a pan so the bread can bake, and then she puts the pan into the oven, and then both the girls go end up and playing a game, and they end up then coming back into the kitchen after a while, and Lucy sees the oven door was kind of open, and she says, what's the oven door doing open? And so she ends up, fully opening up the oven door, and here comes this long, big piece of bread that's being pushed out of the oven, and she asks Ethel, help, cut the bread or whatever, and Ethel cuts the bread and helps Lucy. And then at the end of the episode, everybody ends up having a big piece of bread with some homemade butter. So that's the gist of the episode. I didn't want to talk about the society that is also in the episode. I just didn't think that pertained to what I will be doing today. So let's get to making the happy little loaf of bread. All right, so the first part of this recipe, it says in a bowl of electric mixer fitted with a dough hook, add warm water, sugar, and yeast, and then let the mixture sit for 5 minutes until bubbly. So I have 1.5 cups of warm water, which it says 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'll add that to my bowl. And then I've got my sugar, which is 2 teaspoons of sugar. And then I've got 1 packet of yeast, which is 2 1/4 teaspoons. Alright, and then I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit until it gets a little bubbly, and I'll be right back. Alright, now I've got my yeast all ready. It says to stir in the honey and salt, and then add a cup of flour at a time until the dough forms into a ball. So it tells me I need 2 tablespoons of honey. So I'll add that into my bowl here. Right, and then it says I need a teaspoon of sugar, or it's not sugar, but salt, sorry. And then I'll add 1 cup of flour. And it says for the flour, you need 3 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. I'll start stirring. gonna add another cup of flour. All right, and here's the last full cup of flour I'll be adding. All right, and then this will be the fourth cup. Scrape down the sides of my mixing bowl so the rest of the flour gets in. Alright, now we got all of our flour into the bowl. Now it says to turn out the dough onto a floured surface and knead for 5 minutes. And then after that it says to grease a large bowl and a loaf pan with olive oil. Place the dough inside the bowl, cover the bowl with a clean kitchen towel and let rise until the dough doubles in size, approximately 2 hours. grease some pans up, so I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got my loaf pan greased with olive oil, and then I've also got a bowl all greased with the olive oil. So I'm gonna set my bread inside the bowl, and then I'm gonna cover, and I'll see you in 2 hours. Alright, so the bread should be done rising. And here's what it looks like. Right, and then it says to punch down the dough, then place in greased loaf pan, cover, and let rise for another hour. So I'll punch down the dough, and then I'm gonna put it in the loaf pan. All right, I'll see you in an hour. Alright, so our bread is done rising for the second time. While the bread finished rising, I also set the oven to 375. So now I'm going to put my bread in the oven. And then it says to bake for 25 to 30 minutes. So I'm gonna put mine in for 30 minutes. All right, and then I'll see you when the bread has cooled, and I've put, it says half a stick of butter on top melted. Yes! So I'll see you then. Alright, so my bread is done, and I have got the melted butter already on top, and I cut myself a slice. So let's see how it tastes. All right, yeah, that's pretty good. In fact, I've made this recipe before multiple times, and it's one of my favorite bread recipes. So I plan on putting the link for the cookbook in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I apologize for this video being late. I know I said I was gonna upload it tonight, but unfortunately I had a lot of stuff going on, so hopefully my next video will be on time. Well, I can't wait to see you in my next I Love Lucy episode, and I'll see you then. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you.